Hello guys, welcome back to this video. What you're going to be seeing here is a couple of different mock tests put together, and you'll get a chance to see all the faults. And the reason there's a couple of mock tests in this one clip is that when we filmed them, I think it was a bit of a foggy day and the footage was a little bit hazy. So the one that you're watching just now was filmed on quite a nice day by the looks of things, and then the other two, footage not quite as good, so apologies about that. Camera's had a little bit of a dicht, and it's back to normal for future videos. So jumping into this first fault that you're about to see, this is coming down to a mini roundabout where the vision to the right hand side was obstructed, and the advice that we always give with scenarios like this is that you must not enter this roundabout until you can see enough information to the right. So the turn and right third exit here. Now keep an eye on the mirror at the top of the picture there, showing us at the back. There's a red car that appears there. Now although it wasn't clear that learner entered that roundabout when really it would have been worth creeping and crawling an extra second or so to just see a little bit more into that side road. They would have seen that red car if they had done that, and then they would have waited. So they managed to get out of the way without sort of slowing them down, which is why it was not marked as a serious fault. What we're going to be able to do shortly is give you more view when we're doing these videos. We've invested in some upgrades on the hardware on the cameras, and the 360 camera that we're going to be using will let us spin the camera around in any direction when you're watching these videos, so I would have been able to show you that red car. Right, onwards to the next incident here. The instruction was for the learner to go ahead at the roundabout, taking the second exit. Now if you look at the road markings, you can see here that you can go left or you can go straight on in this lane. The learner driver missed that sign and doubted themselves, and eventually decided that they could go ahead in this lane. So, to be fair, they took the safer option, which was just to signal left and go left. So the minor fault really came from a sort of planning issue there. They get told to turn right on this roundabout to go around and come back. The fault that you're about to sort of witness here was they had done a right turn here on this roundabout without putting a signal on to the right. Their mind was probably not on this roundabout, their mind was probably on the fault on the last roundabout, and this is something that's very common. I call it the snowball effect, when you're thinking about something that's happened in the past. And you've got to try and be mentally strong enough to focus on what's ahead of you, as opposed to dwelling on something that's happened previously. Easier said than done, right? Right, next fault here, they were switching lanes and they put a signal on to move over into this lane, and that is telling people that they're turning into the car park there, so that signal is needed for turning right at the lights, but I was just a little bit early. And you might have seen that one before, because that's quite a common one, and you might even see that again later on in this same video. Right, into the car park here, they're asked to do a forward bay park. They came to a decent section of the car park. They managed to get the car into the bay. Here's a picture from the car's camera. It's not exactly central in the bay, but technically all four wheels are in. So a little bit of a minor fault for not being better positioned in that bay. And although I've not marked this fault when they were reversing out, it was a bit clumsy, a little bit of a loss of control on the way back there. So you just got to take a bit more care when it comes to these manoeuvres, and if you don't feel confident, here's a saying that I use a lot, you've got to fake it until you make it. You've got to convince your instructor, your examiner, that you are confident. Right, we're coming along to our next roundabout. The instruction was to make a right turn at the roundabout. It's taking the second exit towards the station. They had a nice approach. They chose this middle lane that has a right arrow in it, and the decision to enter the roundabout was absolutely fine. But the fault here was not signalling to the right. Now, this is a serious fault because look, there's a red car pulling into front of them. There's another learner car on the left there that may have been tempted to sort of pull out thinking that our car was leaving. So when you're in a lane, that what I like to call is a dual purpose lane, you can go ahead and either left or right as well. You've got to signal the direction that you're going, because if you choose not to, you are then signalling that you're going straight on. Now, throughout this test here, there was a couple of mirror checks that were missed, and there was a build-up of stops where it just wasn't smooth. It was quite a jolty stop, and that led to a serious fault with a build-up of minors. So you've got to smooth that out a little bit with the control. Now, here's our next brave candidate. Emilie was quite happily she agreed to be on camera, so you can see the footage of her on the screen there, and you'll see that she's doing all these lovely mirror checks and observations and things, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to show someone on camera who gave me the permission to do it. It really does show the checks that you need to be doing, and for anyone who's maybe struggling with these checks or not doing them as strong, have a watch, and this is exactly what you're wanting to be doing here. Faults that you're going to see on this clip: we've got being a little bit too close to a parked car in what we call a holdback position. I'll highlight that as we come to it. 3 instances where we went over speed bumps a little bit too fast, and you will be able to see that on the screen. We've got a serious fault using one of the big spiral roundabouts. We've got, believe it or not, the classic stop sign, where a stop and a wait for a couple of seconds didn't happen. And another instance of a right indicator being needed but wasn't given. This is the first fault here. This is where this black car on the left, we get a little bit too close to when we're holding back. It's not always clear to see that from the video, but maybe just have to take my word for it. That was a little bit too close. Nothing serious came from that one though. Emilie is asked to pull up on the left and use the car that's ahead, that big Jeep thing, to do a parallel park. Now, there was actually no faults recorded here. She's done this really, really well, so you'll get to see this being done. All the nice observations that she takes throughout this exercise. There is a car that approaches at some point. It doesn't cause us any trouble. Emilie deals with it really, really well. So the method that we talk about in my lessons is to drop alongside the car about half of a car past, and starting with just a small turn of the wheel, roughly about a quarter turn to the left. Look at all those nice checks there. And here's the view from the back. You can see Emilie continuing her checks round the car. She notices that other car coming up, but they don't approach us. They're quite happy for us to carry on. Emilie's using the car screen as well as the mirrors to decide when it's time to bring the next turn in. And as you get closer to that curb there, it's time for a big right turn of the wheel. And at the very end, when the car's levelling up with the curb, it's important to keep those checks going round, as you can see her doing there, right to the very end. So yeah, a good bit of praise there, that was well done. And then that car was nice and patient with us, and from here we get moving on. And it's not far away from here actually that we went over some of the speed bumps a little bit high, so you'll see that in the next few seconds. This is one of the speed bumps. I mean, that speed 14, 15 that's a low speed. Remember, that's sort of 10% low, so that 14 was maybe 16, 17. For those bumps, it's worth slowing it down a bit. There is another one coming up somewhere, and it's the same idea. I mean, look at the speed on the screen there. So we're up at around 20, just over 20. This is a bit of a bump going over this one. It's not dangerous, folks, but you know, you've got to look after the car. And a bit of passenger comfort, I'm sure your examiners would appreciate that. Now here's what's happening. Emilie gets onto this new road, and again, just look how good her checks are, looking all around the car. Coming along past the King's Gate towards Sinclair Gardens roundabout, and the instruction was to turn right, 4th exit. That's following the signs for Eastport. You'll see it on the road, EPT. So they're in the perfect lane with the right indicator on, going round. Now there's a point at which you have to make a move to come over to the outside lane, which would be here. Emilie doesn't do that, and she just takes this lane. Now this lane does not give you access, and you must not try and get access to here. You should continue on, but Emilie makes a move to signal and cross over, and I had to step in and say nope, can't do that. So we continue on back to where we came from, and with the magic of some special effects, we'll cut forward here to attempt number 2, and you will see this time it's actually done correctly. So coming around on the inside lane again, it's a little bit busier this time. Taking up this position here, and the lights are changing, so we'll keep it moving, and correctly moving over to that far outer lane. So it was marked as a serious fault because there was an attempt to move over that wasn't allowed. If Emilie had recognised on her own that the lane didn't come this way, she could then have went somewhere else on her own and came back, and it would have been either no fault or maybe a minor fault for the planning aspect. But if you show that intention to move, then the examiner's probably going to be stepping in if there's people all around the car. This, as you can probably guess, is the fault I was telling you about with the stop sign. Now see here, you're really going to have to watch very, very closely. Rewind this a couple of times if you want. There was no stop here. The car slows down, but it keeps moving. See, just keeps moving. There wasn't a stop for a good 2 or 3 seconds, and that is not allowed. Hashtag, you can't do that. So it is a stop sign. Stop means stop and all that jazz. You have to stop. And here, this was a fault that had happened earlier on in one of the other clips. It's a right turn. The position was good on entry. Fast forwarding here because it was a bit busy. But when Emilie does join the roundabout, there was no right signal applied. And again, deciding on how serious that was, there was nobody on the left this time. So in this scenario, it wouldn't be as serious because nobody would have been misled. However, the advice is still the same. Apply a right signal if you're in a dual purpose lane and you are not taking the road ahead. Anyway, thank you, Emilie, for being so brave, and hopefully more people will be up for it as well. Right, moving on to this mock test. This is where you might see the footage being a little bit cloudy. I think the camera just had a little bit, I don't know, just gave it a bit wipe and it was better after this. So jumping into the first fault, the learner is asked to pull up on the left. Here would have been fine, there with a high curb just between the driveways, or earlier but they run it on down here to opposite the junction on the right hand side. Marked it as a minor fault because no one was needing in or out of that junction at the time, but it could easily have been marked as a serious fault. So be careful who you choose. Now, things get a bit messy here. The instructions to turn right, taking exit number 4. This lane is good. A right signal is on. What should happen is a move away from the inside lane to the next lane outward should happen here, as indicated with that arrow, but this learner doesn't do that. So it's not the end of the world if you find yourself on the inside lane. You can just, what I like to say, cling to the inside lane. You can cling all day long. Just go around on the inside lane, take the inside lane, take the inside lane. Nope, they don't. Had they taken that inside lane, they could have went around the roundabout and tried again. But they move over into this lane, which, if you follow the pathway, only gives you access to do one thing, which is to leave this roundabout. You'd be leaving it there on the left hand lane. So essentially this learner got a bit lost. They end up leaving here. They end up leaving this roundabout. So this is the first exit that they would have taken when they first came on. So let's say it's not serious, right? Let's say it's a minor fault. Maybe they can get themselves back on track. So they get an instruction down here. Turn right, go around the roundabout, take the 4th exit. Come back up the hill and we'll see if we can try again. So let's see what happens here. We're on the right hand lane, otherwise known as the inside lane. We want to be taking exit number 4. So speed it up a bit because it's a bit busy. We've got a right hand signal on, we join. So everything's fine, we pass exit 1. Everything's fine, we pass exit 2. Now, what we don't want to be doing is crossing over there, because that would be exit 3. We want to be coming round, we want to be moving the car over. No, we cling to the inside. Now, we end up just going around in circles, and eventually I had to step in and say, look, we're going to be taking, the next exit, or go round. And the learner just gets muddled up and they end up diagonally heading over to a position here that you shouldn't really be aiming for. That's just going to mislead those guys in the yellow circle. Like, they almost pulled it in front of us. So the serious fault here came from just absolutely getting lost on this roundabout and the other roundabout, which, if you're not comfortable with them, that can happen. We've got tutorial videos showing you how to do every single pathway around these roundabouts. I'll link to them in the description. I would suggest that you check them out if you're struggling with these roundabouts. There's an early signal, same as earlier on. That tells people you've been at the car park. You're not. There's another wee fault there. See, faults like that happen time and time again. If you're a regular watcher of these videos, you will notice them and start to recognise them. Hopefully these videos are designed not for you to copy the wrong faults, but to avoid doing them, Now, with just a little bit of assistance, we managed to negotiate our way up to the next section for where we've done our reversing exercise. So I'm going to put the next part of the clip on a fast speed. There is options that you can slow this down when you're watching it on YouTube. That reminds me, you should also make sure that you're watching this in the highest quality option. YouTube sometimes makes these videos look a lot worse in quality, but you can go into the settings, whether you're on your phone or your laptop, and tell the quality to be the highest and the speed to be either 1x1, which is the speed that you're watching it at now, or you could speed it up or slow it down if you want to have a better look at things. Now we're not far away here from the road that the learner is asked to pull up on the right on. So you'll see that happening up here, pull up on the right in a safe place. Nothing really wrong with the position that they've taken here, and they can start the reverse. Now there's a couple of faults here. One of them was, and I can't really show you this yet, although I do have some cool stuff coming that I will be able to do this soon. But at the moment you'll just have to take my word for it. The back end of the car on the right, beside the curb, is getting closer and tighter and closer and tighter, to the point where the learner is trying to make some corrections with the wheel to open up a little bit of space down there. But watch the mirror, there's a car passing them. They don't stop, they didn't see that car. I gave the learner a chance at the end, and I says, when you were doing your reverse on the right, there's a car came up behind you and passed you. If you tell me what the colour of the car was, I'll mark it as a minor. They didn't know. So the fact that they didn't realise that the car had came is a big serious fault. Right, onwards here, that was a 20mph zone that they've passed through. The speed at the moment is absolutely fine. Remember, the speed that you're looking at is a couple of miles an hour slower than what the actual speed was. For now, again, I've got some cool things coming that will sort that out. Have a look up ahead on the right hand side. You can see that the 20mph zone, the temporary zone, is coming to an end. In case you can't see it, here it is. I'm going to zoom right in. Now you can probably guess the fault here. The learner doesn't see that 30 sign, sorry. And look in the mirror, there's a bunch of cars there. Now 19 miles an hour, again that's more like 20, 21. The poor people at the back are getting held up and held up. And I waited as long as I could to give the learner a chance to get a move on, and noticed that they were in a 30 zone again, but it didn't happen. So at this point I thought they've had long enough, and I says to them, do you realise that we're no longer in a 20 zone? Let's get a move on for the sake of the people at the back. So there you have it, a bunch of faults. When you see faults that other people have made and you recognise them, hopefully things like stopping at the stop sign and that, hopefully these will start happening less and less. If anyone is brave enough to show their face on camera, don't worry if you don't fancy it. If you're up for it, just let me know. And for any of those people that are still watching to the very end of the video, thank you. I know it was a bit of a longer one. Let us know in the comments, did you like it being this length? Do you prefer it to be the shorter length? I always will try and make it the way that you guys want it to be. So, thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for another one coming really, really soon. Thank you.